This is when a bank or a market maker puts a huge amount of money, sometimes billions of dollars, into an ETF just for maybe 24 or 48 hours, then takes it back out. You might wonder, why would they do that? It's a way of essentially washing the ETF's taxes away.
Rachel, what does that mean?
So when you think about kind of like how an ETF works, an ETF creates and redeems shares. That's how kind of investors move in and move out of an ETF. Now, as part of that, they're able to do that either with cash. They can go out and sell shares in the market or give out kind of cash to those investors, or they can give out shares to the investors. This is because ETFs have a middleman involved in them. Unlike mutual funds, you actually have brokers that come and deliver shares to the ETF or take shares out. Now, as part of that, when they take shares out, they don't have to pay tax on that. Now, that means they are able to effectively get rid of that tax so that investors in that fund don't necessarily have to pay that when they sell out of the ETF.
So here's my question. This is legal, right? This is a loophole, but it is legal.
Well, we don't really know.
Really?
The IRS has never said either way. The funds and the banks have legal opinions from law firms saying they believe that it complies with the tax code.
Is that good enough? That is one of the questions. And the other question is, who gets the benefit here, right? I mean, the savings from not paying taxes on investments at a time when U.S. equities are rallying the most since 2003. You have to, or 2009 rather, you have to wonder who's getting the extra profits. Rachel?
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to actually how this kind of like tax maneuver works, it's ultimately a tax deferral that you do as an investor, pay your tax as and when you sell the shares in your ETF, when you kind of leave the fund for good. However, as part of kind of like the process within an ETF, you're not necessarily paying those gains on a yearly basis. So this kind of means that you are minimizing your tax today. You will have to pay in the future, but there are kind of ways in which you may end up avoiding them for good.
Right. So to think about, if a hedge fund, a mutual fund, a brokerage account, and an ETF all held the exact same stock portfolio for a year, there's a good chance that all three of those other funds would have to pay a tax at the end of the year, but the ETF wouldn't.
Is this what people are talking about when they say that ETFs have a tax advantage over mutual funds? Is it really this loophole?
In part. I mean, when you think about kind of the ETF structure, you have kind of the way that they, as I was saying earlier, they take in and give out securities. That is one of the ways that makes them tax efficient. However, what we're talking about with these heartbeats is it's really kind of like a sort of special situation when, say, there's an index rebalancing, they have a ton of stock that they need to get rid of, and some of that may have incurred capital gains. They are able to do that in a very, very tax efficient kind of way. And the question becomes how legitimate is it to kind of create a transaction to make something efficient rather than just using the typical ebb and flow of assets coming in and out of a fund.
I thought Zach was going to be like, imagine a broker and this guy walk into a bar. No, I'm kidding. So this chart basically shows the heartbeat of an ETF. Really quickly, can you just walk us through like what happened here, the mechanics?
Sure. So you see that first big spike that goes up. That's an outsider, probably a large investment bank, putting like more than $3 billion of stocks into the ETF, making the ETF bigger by 14%. Then 2 days later, probably that same investor takes all that money back out. Now, the magic is the stuff they put in was just regular shares. The stuff they took out was stocks that the ETF needed to sell. So instead of selling, it gave them to a withdrawing investor, which means no taxes due. So that was Facebook with extremely high appreciation that they were essentially able to sell without paying tax.